Volume 7 is a crucial one because it contains documents and essays related to the initial split within the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party that will later constitute the Bolshevik Menshevik split. At the Second Congress of the RSDLP, Lenin noted a series of disagreements that broke out that distracted from the organizing agenda. The first was a disagreement over the role of Iskra in the Central Committee of the party. Another issue that emerged concerned some personal protests by one Yekaterina Alexandrova against other members of the organizing committee. The language dispute constituted yet a third issue, as there were some disagreements about the proposed equality of languages, and finally the issue over the autonomy of the Bund, or the Jewish section, who wanted to constitute their own organization within the party. Lenin and Julius Martov voted together in these issues, but split over the seemingly simple question of party organization. Martov believed that party membership had to stay broad in order to absorb as much labor support as possible. Lenin, using the party rules as a basis, argued that a party member must be one who supports the party financially and by personal participation in one of the party organizations. In other words, it was not enough to pay dues. A real party member had to be active. Lenin believed that such a narrowing of membership would eliminate organizational chaos, opportunism, and unnecessary roadblocks to organization. At first, the old Marxist Gregory Plekhanov opposed Martov's view, saying that such a broad admittance would open the doors for opportunism. However, Plekhanov pleaded with Lenin to concede to the Martanovites in order to preserve unity within the party, but Lenin refused, and Plekhanov insisted that one of them would have to resign their position in the executive committee. As trifling as this disagreement sounds, it served a major blockage to party organizing and a threat to the party in general. Relations with Lenin and Martov broke, and while Plekhanov tried to maintain the peace, rumors started to spread, and the theoretical disagreement grew into a personal dispute between Martov, Lenin, and Plekhanov. In response to escalating tensions, Lenin tenured his resignation from Iskra, from the Iskra editorial board, hoping to preserve peace, but a peace could not exist so long as fundamental disagreements over organization existed. In Lenin's third major work in this series so far, One Step Forward, Two Steps Back, he attempts to explain in detail the roots of the split and the dangers of factionalism. Most importantly, Lenin provides clarification on his own organizational view of party activity, and in that sense, it's a foundational text for what will later become Leninism after his death. It's important to note that the newspapers he refers to throughout the text represent different positions, different factions within the party, and they are thus supported by certain members of those factions. Iskra is the only one worth remembering because it will remain a central party organ. So here are a few of the main points from One Step Forward, Two Steps Back. One, Lenin believed centralizing the party from the top down would avoid opportunism, anarchism, and trade unionism from seeping into the upper ranks. Two, he writes, quote, the less wavering and instability there is within the party, the broader, the more varied, richer, and more fruitful will be the party's influence on the elements of the working class masses surrounding it and guided by it. The party, as the vanguard of the working class, must not be confused, after all, with the entire class. Three, however, the party cannot be exclusively made up of professional revolutionaries. And Lenin writes, quote, we need the most diverse organizations of all types, ranks, and shades, beginning with extremely limited and secret and ending with very broad, free, loose organizations. Four, unions should work under the control and direction of social democratic organizations. There should be a distinction between organizations of the revolutionaries and organizations of the workers. Basically, Lenin suggested that the antagonism between himself and Martov did not have to lead to a split, but that the personal offenses compelled Martov to declare positions in opposition to just about everything Lenin voted for. The theoretical feud, in other words, became personal. In a further attempt to try to avoid a split, Lenin called for another Congress to try to work past the differences, particularly in the context of Russia's impending war against Japan, which was a ripe opportunity for unity and joint agitation. In What We Are Working For, Lenin argues that because his position constituted a majority at the Congress, the minority position, now in charge of Iskra, needs to surrender the fight. Many of the documents that precede are letters and little articles written by Lenin to members of the party, an effort to maintain his majority and their support. Another important text is Lenin's response to Rosa Luxemburg's critique of one step forward, two steps back. To keep it simple, Lenin says Luxemburg's criticism proposed gradual centralization instead of what she refers to Lenin's ultra centralism. Lenin says this is a vulgarization of Marx, who said that the conditions of the struggle will look different depending on the system in which the revolutionaries are operating in. Finally, as evidence, Lenin uses the minority's dominance of the Russian party to demonstrate that centralization cannot be a gradual process, lest the minority take control, which they currently had. By November 1904, in a letter to the Comrades, Lenin decided that the split was irreparable, and he endeavored to create a separate organ for the majority, or Bolsheviks, proposing to call it Vperod, or forward. Many people infer from the split that Lenin, quote, distrusted the masses, but we can see through these documents that this simply wasn't true. Lenin just recognized that the Russian working class was not as developed as that working class in the West, and thus needed revolutionaries to help guide the revolution. But as he said about the party itself, should be made up of revolutionaries as well as workers and the rank and file. Thanks for listening. Until next time, please subscribe, share, do all that stuff. It really helps a lot. Thanks.